So, what even is economic growth? A simple, everyday explanation of GDP. When economists talk about economic growth, they're really answering one simple question. Did our country produce more this year than it did last year? That's all there is to it. You don't need to imagine giant factories or complicated data charts. Basically, growth is something you already understand from everyday life. Picture a small bakery in your neighborhood. Last year, it was churning out 500 loaves of bread a day. Business improved, they hired one more baker, and now they produce 700 loaves a day. It's the same building, same ovens, but we can produce more. That's what we call growth. It's the same story for a country. If a nation produced 100 units of goods and services last year and 105 this year, the economy has grown. And those units include everything people pay money for. Hey, just to let you know, there are cars being manufactured at the moment. Haircuts at a salon. Apps for mobiles that are developed by a small team. Surgeries carried out in hospitals. Packages delivered by courier. Get your latte fix at your favorite cafe. In simple terms, any kind of economic activity that adds value is part of growth. How do we measure growth? GDP. GDP, or gross domestic product, is basically the total value of everything a country makes in a year. You can think of it as the country's yearly report card. Here's a helpful analogy. Imagine you're a teacher. During the year, your class creates projects, assignments, presentations, and artwork. At the end of the year, you look at everything they produced to understand how active and productive they were. It's just like GDP, but on a national scale. A real-life example. Let's say your friend owns a small restaurant. Last year, the restaurant made $900,000 in revenue. This year it made $1,050,000. The restaurant's increased service is a plus for the economy. The same logic applies if the game studio put out 1 game last year and 3 this year. Last year, the textile shop sold 10,000 shirts, and 13,000 this year. The cafe served 50,000 coffees last year, and 62,000 this year. Every increase makes a small part of the bigger picture of growth. Why does growth matter so much? Usually, when something grows, 3 other important things tend to happen as well. There are more job opportunities available at the moment. More production means more workers are needed. If a factory boosts output by 20%, it'll probably hire new staff. More money coming in. When businesses are doing well, people tend to get paid more regularly. Better quality of life. When a country produces more, the economic pie gets bigger. Even if distribution isn't perfect, a bigger pie means more possibilities. You know when your city suddenly becomes busy, with new shops opening, more people and more deliveries? That real-world buzz is what growth feels like. How to turn growth into figures. There are 2 ways to measure GDP. Nominal GDP. This is GDP measured in current prices. But there's one big problem: inflation. If prices go up but production stays the same, GDP still looks bigger on paper. Here's an example. A coffee that used to cost $3 last year is now $5. Your cafe sells the same number of coffees, but its GDP contribution looks higher, even though nothing actually grew. That's why nominal GDP can be misleading. Real GDP is a great way to see how the economy is actually doing, as it takes inflation into account. Here's a simple real-life example. Last year you sold 1,000 coffees. This year you sold 1,200. That's real growth, no matter what happens with the price. Economists focus on real GDP because it shows the actual increases in production. Is growth always a good thing? Most of the time, yes, but not always. Not all growth is good growth. For example, if growth only happens because banks hand out easy credit and people suddenly spend more, the economy might look like it's booming, but it's not sustainable. It's just like how a neighborhood can suddenly get really busy because everyone's using credit cards. It feels exciting, but it's not a long-term thing. If you want to see real, lasting growth, you need to focus on productivity, technology, and efficiency. You'll be able to do things better. More output with the same or fewer resources. That's the kind of growth that'll really boost the economy in the long run. How growth shows up in your day-to-day life. People don't see GDP in numbers, they feel it around them. There are more job postings available. Stores are now stocking more products. The cafes are filling up. There are new malls, shops, and markets opening up all the time. There's going to be some more noise from the construction site. There's more variety in tech and imported goods these days. These things don't necessarily indicate growth on their own, but when they happen in combination, it's a sign that the economy is doing well. In the end, growth is a country's pulse. Economic growth is the answer to the big question. Are we producing more value than before? GDP is basically just a snapshot of that. Every coffee, every haircut, every phone app, every machine, they all add up. They're the beating heart of the economy,